What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with yet another album review, and today I am talking about the latest offering from Extinction A.D. to the Detested. This also came out on August 16th, this time on Unique Leader Records, and this is the band's fourth album overall, and this is actually my first sit-down listening to this band, and they're described on Metal Archives as hardcore slash thrash metal, but not crossover thrash. And I think, for the most part, that is accurate. However, I must say, there's also some, like, 90s metalcore slash metallic hardcore elements going on here. And yeah, I was interested in checking this one out, considering I've heard a lot of buzz about this band, and I'm like, well, let's see what this is all about. We kick things off with Desperate Grasp, and right away you get hit with the production value. It's gritty, it's nasty, but still well balanced in the mix and the tones. And then immediately turns into like a straight up like metallic hardcore song, like big hardcore chugs, but with metal riffs. And the vocal delivery is very much that like hardcore shouting, screaming vocal style from like the 90s metalcore slash metallic hardcore. I might as well just say metalcore, because metalcore and metallic hardcore is the same fucking thing. But then it gets kind of punky, like the beats and the riffs do kind of shift up to a little bit more of like a punk inspired aesthetic a little bit. And then of course breakdowns galore on the album, but I'd say most of these breakdowns were pretty damn killer for the most part, like real big catchy standouts. But one thing I will say that I think would disqualify this album a little bit from being labeled as straight up hardcore or metalcore, the guitar solos. There are solos on every single track on this album, and that's always been kind of my general rule. If bands are labeled as metalcore or hardcore, if you have more than 75% of the album featuring guitar solos, you're not a hardcore or metalcore band anymore. That's just at least my personal opinion. And basically, every song has a killer lead on here. Like, these guitarists are just flying on all cylinders. And what I liked about with this opening track, a notable bass line as well as like harmonized leads, which was really cool. Escape from New York, which is funny considering this band's from Long Island, and yet they're doing a song called Escape from New York. Again, it's more of this kind of the same veneer, which is hardcore chugs. It goes double time, but there's also some more like hardcore D beats, kind of like Discharge or Early Agnostic Front, like those kind of D beats. And the lead here was more or less quick shred before it goes back to being just pummeling. But then you finally get more thrash whenever you get to the following track, Epidemic of Mutation. Lots of nasty riffs, but it's chuggy and savage, but then it does get into almost straight up thrash metal. And while I will admit, the vocals on the chorus, very, very weird. I gotta admit, like strange vocals, cadences in the chorus, but again, killer leads. But then whenever it comes out of the bridge and into the final chorus, it's led in by clean vocals, which actually I thought were pretty tasteful, like tasteful clean vocals, and it's the only time clean vocals show up on the album, so they used it in a good place. So I definitely gotta give some brownie points for that. Then into Apocalypse Rising, it's very much like riffy, chuggy, groovy. There's even like a little drum fill in there that kind of reminded me of Sepultura a little bit, like Chaos A.D. era Sepultura, which I thought was a nice little nod to Sepultura, I must admit. But then you get to the final track of the first half, Impervious Unrepentant. It's mostly like big D beats and big stomps, grooves, beefy breakdown, like maybe the best breakdown on the album, at least up to this point. But what's interesting about this track features one Matt Heafy from Trivium doing guest vocals, and he served the song pretty well, doing his like trademark scream that you hear him do on Trivium albums, and it fits this band quite a bit. So it was cool that Matt Heafy got to do something cool with this. Then to the song Fill the Void. This one is maybe the thrashiest, one of the thrashiest songs of the album. It almost borderlines on Slayer levels of thrash with like the riffs. The tone is kind of more sinister and evil and dark. There's even blast beats, which I think is, uh, yeah, just only the first and only track on the album that's blast beats involved. Double time stomp, but mostly like a thrash double time. But the lead on this track, more melodic. Like, again, they were able to diversify the lead work all over the place on this album. And then, of course, big breakdown. Burnt Sienna, this one was kind of an interesting one because its first like minute or so is more like tribal yet like Middle Eastern folk, which I thought was kind of odd. But then after it gets out of that like Middle Eastern folk vibe, it gets into mostly like the 90s metallic hardcore, metalcore kind of riffs, gallops fairly well, and then again you get more harmonized leads. Shepherding Swine, very much like thrash riffs, but with hardcore groove. So it was kind of like a nice balance of the two. But you also get little more tinges of melody on this track, not just in like the lead, but in some of the riffs or the progressions. Kind of get a little bit more melodic. Thrashy gallops, lumbering grooves. Behind the Veil of Sanctity starts off chuggy, but then it does get back into like a thrash gallop, and then some more punk inspired riffs and beats come back for the first time since Desperate Grasp. But you get a notable bass line, and it just grooves along so nicely. But then the big standout, the closing track, The Cure or The Cause, I would say was my favorite track on the album, the thrashiest song on the album. The bass and the beats and the riffs, and it felt like a Testament song, like a modern Testament song, but it chugs. Again, these fucking chugs on this album, they went all out on chugging. And of course, maybe the second best breakdown on the album behind Impervious Unrepentant, perhaps. But yeah, and then of course another fantastic lead to bring it all to a close. So yeah, like I said, production-wise, it's gritty but well balanced with the tones and the mix. Of course, some of the chugs and the hardcore elements can get a little bit repetitive the more you listen to it. But as I was listening to it, I got used to it and I appreciated it. But whenever it gets into like the more thrashy moments, man, they stand out so much. I think it's because whenever they get into the hardcore stuff, it just makes the thrash come out more and stand out more above all else on this album. So overall, I'm going to give this 3.5 out of 5. I thought this was a pretty damn good offering from a band that I never listened to until now. So yeah, if you're a fan of, I would say, like Power Trip, New York hardcore bands like Cro-Mag's Agnostic Front, but also if you like Testament, check this out. And that does it for this review. Thank you guys for watching. What did you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Keep your horns high and your dreams wet.
Thank you for your patronage.